Okay, great. So I just put together a slide deck for this as opposed to going the live demo route because live demos always have the nuances. So today I'm going to take a look at, I'm going to share some of the details behind one of my recent blog posts on how to impersonate a user in MicroStrategy using all out-of-the-box components. So in the original blog post, I sort of gave a end game solution. Here's the code that you need, plug it in, and this is how it works. So what I wanted to do today is take a quick look at how it actually works, how it comes together to provide that end solution. In just about every environment that I've worked in, we've always had some mechanism to impersonate a user, whether it's storing a database of users and passwords, or taking the passwords for the users and encrypting them and using those as a sort of a master set. Even gone as far as remapping the LDAP settings in MicroStrategy to make it look like I'm logged in as somebody else so that I can actually log in and see the world through their eyes in MicroStrategy. This method does not do any of those. This method goes more specific to session sharing. So the good thing about session sharing is that you don't have to pass any passwords for users. It's all related to one given session. So when that session expires, secondary user access is terminated. So that's big sell for this here. So essentially how that works is, let's say I log into MicroStrategy. Once I log in, it creates a session. I can then take a link to my session and provide that to a third party. Let's say that's you. You then click that link. It opens up your web browser, and you're now logged in to MicroStrategy as if you were me because you, in essence, piggybacked onto my session. So we'll take a look at some of the specifics of how that works. And at the end, we'll tie it all together with sort of the end game that was on my blog originally.
Is something new in MicroStrategy enabling this, or has this always kind of been available for a while at least, or did they implement something new, this session sharing capability?
No, I think it's been around for a while. As long as you had a session key, you've been able to get into this. Is just sort of, it wasn't straightforward. Previously, it used to be more or less SDK, and using this method, it makes it easy.
Okay.
So there's some of the documentation that MicroStrategy provided on what is needed to impersonate a user or share a session, so you can log in as if you were them. So if you skip way down to the bottom, you can see you need the URL, the server, project, port. But the most important thing is at the very bottom, you have this, the session key. And the session key is this ridiculously long string that no one's ever going to type in or memorize or remember or anything like that. But that's one of the most important pieces to that. So I'm going to show you how we can generate all these pieces on the fly within MicroStrategy so that we can make it dynamic, so that it can be deployed across projects and you don't have to worry about hard coding, make it user-friendly as an end result. So let's take a look at the next piece here. All right, so to make this a little easier, as opposed to taking all those parameters individually that I just showed on the previous slide, I'm just going to grab a link to an existing document. So I just right-click on my base document, grab the link, so then I have a direct link as a base for the session sharing. Okay, so what we need all the variables that are listed on the left-hand side in that black box. At the bottom, I have that sample URL that I put together with the parameters that are required to create this session sharing key. And there's a very easy way to sort of pull this all together. So I'll show that in sorry, not sure if you guys are seeing that floating box. So what I did is I just opened up the developer tools in my web browser, and I'm going to pull a few JavaScript functions that are going to allow me to pull all of these different elements to share the session. So you can see on the bottom, I need the web server, so it's a Windows location href function. And there's a series of functions that you can call in your web browser that are MicroStrategy native. So if you have MicroStrategy installed, you can just run these functions, and you'll get all that. So you have server name, the project name, the port, the document ID, and then most importantly, the session key. So if you put all these together, or bring them all together, in addition to the few bits of text that you have in the URL that aren't specific to these variables, you bring it all together and you get an active link. So when I put this together, if I were to click that link, it would log me in as the user that was originally logged in. So I could pass this link around to basically anyone to impersonate my user.
Is it time bound or?
That's a good question. It's bound based on the session. So if you let's say you just let the user stay idle, it'll be based on the session that's in MicroStrategy. So usually that's something like 10 minutes. But you can actively go in and end it. So let's say I share a session with somebody, and then I don't want them to be logged in as me anymore. I can just go in and tap the logout button, and it's going to kill the session.
I see. Okay. So it's only active as long as your originating session is active.
That's right. That's right.
Interesting.
All right. So we have a link that allows me to share the session, but making this user-friendly, that process that I just showed isn't user-friendly at all. So this picks up where the blog left off. So take that string that we put together using JavaScript, and we drop it into an HTML button. So the end result is the user's going to click the button, and it'll get that link. But more straightforward, it's going to generate. This is a href So if someone taps the button, it's going to open up your email client. Within the email client, it'll have the link within the body of the email. And I've also added in the subject line, you can sort of decipher the details here. It says user support right in the subject line. So you can customize this based on your needs and make it straightforward. The end result here, I have sort of this little button my HTML button that I referenced. So end user can tap that button. It's going to fire off their email client and allow them to share that session with somebody. As a side, one of my blog posts also shows on a more straightforward and scalable or dynamic way to format buttons, so you don't have to do HTML. You can just have a transparent button. If your HTML button is transparent, and you put a MicroStrategy, a nicely formatted button underneath it, and then that helps with the formatting. Makes it a little easier to.
So this button, would you be dropping it into just like the MicroStrategy web app, or do you put it on a document or a dossier, or where is it that you're proposing you put the button?
That's a good question. So in this case, I have it within a document. So this is in the document itself, and as part of the session key, I didn't point this out earlier, but it has a report ID or a document ID, and putting it inside of a document just helps satisfy that need for an object. So sort of envisioning this as a support document. If you have other documents that have administrative support, things like changing passwords or a more restricted way of changing preferences within the document, that's sort of that mentality.
Okay. So some type of special document that's used by it's available there for people to open up if they need support of some sort.
Exactly. That'll be this document that allows them to request support. And so I touched on this in the beginning, but the important aspect to this is people are not impersonating other users willy-nilly. There's someone is actively sharing their session with another user.
It has to originate from the person who's actually providing the share, essentially. Cool.
That's right.
Very cool. I know over the years I've had many times when customers or users have had a need to impersonate, especially coming from the